Hello, welcome to Dry Creek Beekeeping. In this video, I'm going to be telling 15 things that I wish I knew when I was just beginning beekeeping. First, tools. Now, everyone knows that you need a few basic things to start beekeeping. A hive, a beekeeping suit, although that is optional, and a hive tool. However, there are a few things that are very helpful to have on hand. First is a varroa mite checker. These things are great because if you don't know how your hive is doing, they seem to be getting a little bit sick, or if it's just a time of year that you should be checking for varroa mites, you can just use this handy thing and it works great. Another tool that you need is a frame holder. This just sits on the edge of the hive and you can put extra frames in it so that they don't have to be on the ground. In fact, you may have seen this in my previous video. Link to that video will be in the description. And the last tool that I recommend is a frame grabber. Now, this thing does destroy a little bit of comb when you use it, but if you're having trouble getting a frame out, this thing works great. Way better than using your gloved hands to get a frame out. Second bit of advice that I have is to level your hive. But don't make it perfectly level. Make sure that the entrance of the hive is sloping down. So that way any water that forms in the hive can run out, and also no water can get into the hive. I had 2 hives die during the winter due to this previously, because water got in and then there was excess moisture, so they died. Third, make sure to use an entrance reducer until your hive has about 2 boxes on it and they're both doing well. Fourth, make sure to use an entrance feeder if you're planning on giving your bees any sugar water. Of course, it only works during the spring, you can't use it for the winter, but it's very good because in the other types of feeders, bees often drown, but with an entrance feeder, bees can't drown. Fifth, don't over smoke your hive. A little bit of smoke goes a long way, and you don't want your bees suffocating. Now, you may be thinking, if smoke can suffocate them, isn't it better to use no smoke? And that's not the case, because a little bit of smoke is okay, since it will calm your bees down by making sure that attack pheromones don't spread to other bees, and also because it makes them gorge themselves on honey, which means that they aren't paying attention to you as much. Sixth, make sure to wear a full bee suit. Now, when I was just starting beekeeping, I often wore the headpiece and the gloves, and then I would wear a sweatshirt and jeans, and I thought this was fine until one day I felt something buzz in my pocket and it wasn't my phone. Seventh, think ahead for winter. Now, if you live down south, this isn't an issue. But if you live up north, or where I do, where you actually get snow, this is something that you are going to want to pay attention to. There is no time when you shouldn't be paying attention to what you need to do in the winter, because sometimes it can take a long time to prepare and get the supplies that you need, such as a tent or some sort of hive blanket. Eighth, look for signs of sickness. Signs of sickness in bees are abnormal behavior, extremely aggressive behavior, and odd egg laying patterns. All of these are signs that you're going to need to find out what's wrong with your hive. Ninth, be able to recognize the difference between drone brood and normal brood. Normal brood sits flat against the frame and is often a light color. Drone brood, however, is a darker color and the cells stick out from the frame and also aren't in normal egg laying patterns. 10th, what do you do with burr comb? Burr comb is this extra comb that doesn't fit into the molds of the frames. Maybe it's under the frames or it's connecting two frames. Some beekeepers leave this, but sometimes it can cause them to make really, really weird comb formations, and this can sometimes not be good. I personally just remove it. Number 11, how to melt beeswax. I personally recommend the double boiler method, and I actually have a video explaining how to do this. Link to that video will be in the description. But I've tried other methods, such as solar wax melting, which only works for like 3 hours a day, and other methods like melting wax with a candle or a light. That doesn't work well either, and it almost caused her house to burn down. 12th, make sure to check your hives every 2 weeks if they're doing well, and 1 week if they aren't doing well. Don't check them too often or not often enough, because this can lead to problems. If you check them too often, then they can lose progress. And if you check on them not often enough, you could have swarm situations, or perhaps your hive could just be completely dead and you won't know what happened. Now, these last 3 things are stuff that I did know before I started beekeeping, but it's just a good thing for everyone to know. 13th, always have a journal. A journal is great because you can look back on previous years beekeeping and learn from your mistakes. So I'm going to read 2 journal entries from around the same time of year as now, but from previous years. May 7th, 2020. This was a long journal entry, so I'm kind of just going to skip through what I said. This is when I had noticed that the queen of my hive had died without laying any eggs, and I had a laying worker situation. So I tried figuring out a solution to this by looking it up online, but unfortunately I couldn't find anything. So I had to come up with a solution on my own, and this was to borrow a frame of brood from a local beekeeper and put it in my dying hive. And there was a very small chance of this working, but I would hope that they took one of the fertilized eggs and used it to make a new queen. And somehow it actually worked, and they did. And I ended up getting about 70 pounds of honey from that hive, despite the setback. And then May 11th, 2019, I said, my hive is healthy. They now have capped honey, lots of capped brood, although none opened. And I accidentally dropped a frame, although it didn't hurt any bees. It did destroy some comb and killed a few eggs and larvae. Now, luckily, that was a storage frame that I dropped. It didn't have that much eggs and larvae on it. Although, depending on what height I dropped it from, it could have killed all of them. Although, from reading this, it didn't seem that bad. Number 14, where you want your hive. Now, I happen to actually get this right first try. You want it to be in a place that's protected from the wind, and it also needs to be facing towards the east, so that way the bees rise with the sun. And also you need to have a creek nearby. I am in a little grove of cedar trees, and there's a creek just right down there. And finally, number 15. When you first get honey from your hive, which probably won't happen this year if you're just starting, you need to make sure that there's not too much or too little water in the honey. Because if there's too little water, then the honey will start to crystallize, and then you could end up with this hard slab of honey at the bottom of a jar. And if there's too much water, then it could start to ferment and make basically alcoholic honey or mead. Well, that's the end of this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content that I'm creating. And also, if you have any questions regarding beekeeping, be sure to put it in the comments. See ya.